How's it, guys? Just something interesting I want to show you. Um, this is just something I want to talk about. I know I talk a lot, there's a lot of information, but people always focus on the technical stuff. And I want to discuss something I saw here. Something from QBanks. And a lot of people will say, yeah, these big name traders are conning people and so forth. But read what this guy is saying, and there's a lot of truth to this. So he will say gaining consistency isn't easy. That is definitely the truth. There's a lot of difficulties because of the following stuff that he says. The market isn't against you, you're just trading the basics, which is what the majority of people do that lose. So there is nothing wrong with the basics because you need to understand what the basics is. That needs to be your foundation. And then he says you must learn to build your edge. Now, edge is something that sets you apart, something that is a bit different, that will make you better, that will help you find that good entry, for instance, that will protect your risk. Because the moment you have a good entry and you can scale in on a good entry and you can put your stop loss to entry, for instance, will set you apart and will protect your capital. That is something that a lot of people do not necessarily do. They will talk to you, don't be cheap, invest in a person, knowledge that has gained the skill you're trying to acquire. Well, regardless of the price you pay for it, either it's monetary, something you sacrifice with money, or maybe something with time, but you need to invest the time and energy into actually learning something that you can apply practically. And then once again, he also talks about there's no secret formula. There isn't a secret formula. Well, if there is ever a secret, is the pure fact that you need to sit and put the effort in. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, a lot of people realize they do not have the time or the energy to focus on something. Now, if you don't focus on something, or you can't grasp it over a long term, you're not going to succeed with this thing. He also talks about your work ethic. It shows when the knowledge you've learned is being applied correctly. That is very valid. Risk management is key, also something very important. Um, Often the most difficult things are the most rewarding. Trading is a test. I agree completely with that. Capital is made by knowledge. You don't need much or make a lot. Example, he says, talking about his margin XRP. He applied his edge. And then he says, if your lot starts increasing, you aren't learning. Well, you need to start testing your system once the foundation is there. I'm just going to go and make another one quickly on a practical, how I interpret this thing practically. So just the second part of this video, there's something that I'd like to call a foundational requirement. You need to have emotional control. And what I mean with emotional control is you cannot let anything that upsets you affect your judgment. Because at the end of the day, you need to have a systematic approach and a system that you can trust that helps you see things clearer. Because at the end of the day, looking at a chart without understanding what is happening can cause you to get into a panic. Maybe something has happened in your life where you can't focus nicely. You're under stress, you're a bit upset about something, or you're in ecstasy about something, you don't see the obvious. The second point is appropriate risk management, and that goes both ways on risking too small and risking too big. You need to understand how to risk properly per trade. Obviously, you need to have a technical understanding of how basic trading works, but you need to have a bit of vision and understanding of the bigger picture. So, looking at that practically, let's have a look at something like this. This is the Dow Jones, the US 30, and let me just delete all of this text here. Now, if people look at this thing, they will come with all sorts of technical analysis and theories and what have you. At the end of the day, all that matters is the systematic approach you take to this thing. For instance, once you start seeing small tools that I use, like a break of structure, I know that this thing is likely to break and retest. And that's all it does. It breaks and retests. And based on that, I mean, the duration of this play is weeks. Now, I'm telling you, if you're going to risk a large sum of money on that break there, right there, check what happened. So this is on a daily chart. So each candle is a day. The moment that thing breaks, you're going to be in huge profit. Huge profit. And let's look at on the hour. Let's go back there. So without even any chart analysis on this thing, the moment it breaks that thing there, and you can't see the rest of it, you're thinking, okay, let's buy this thing, it's at a support level. And you are going to get eventually stopped out if you were buying. If you were selling it and thinking you're going to keep on selling it, it would have come back up and it would have stopped you out, and you would have said, no, this thing I'm going to buy here again, and it's going to stop you out because it continues selling. And so this thing plays with your emotions. So you're going to need some form of a tool to make you understand what happens, and that's where your knowledge comes in. Just by knowing you need to change over to a bigger time frame, you can say, but right, this is what I see in the bigger picture. It's a trend that got broken, it got retested, and is likely to continue down. And what happened? This thing fell for, let's say, 23,000 points. If you entered there, if you entered on a way that I've shown people, I've got a bit of a strategy regarding this, an M pattern. You would have had, let's say for instance, we took an entry there. You would have had 25,000 points. Now if you do the math on that thing, that move on 1,000 Rand, you would have made in, let's say, a month, 400,000 Rand from 1,000 Rand. Right there, 400,000 Rand, that's your potential on one entry where you just left it. You could have scaled in on every single pullback here. You could have scaled in. How did you do that? Now people ask, how do you know you're going to make that money? Well, the honest truth is you don't. And all that you do is you see the bigger picture of what is likely to happen, and you will risk your shorts appropriately. So let's say for instance, you knew it's going to break there and you're unsure. You will still aim for the low because you know the lows are likely going to be taken out. That's a 1 to 17 trade. So yeah, you could have made on the first one 17,000 Rand. Once it broke and retested it, you could have risked 5% of it. Let's say 17,000, you risk another. Let's say you take 20% of that money you made, and you risk it. So what is 20%? You say another 2 or 3,000 Rand. 6 to 1, you're targeting the lows. So 6 times 2 is 12,000 Rand. Now you already flipped 1,000 Rand to 30,000 Rand. Came back up, retested. You see there's a point of interest right there. And it tapped into it. You just keep your system going. Tapped in, you're targeting more lows. So it's a 1 to 3. So you are right. Risking 1,000 Rand, you're making 3,000 Rand right there. And it broke and you left, let's say for instance you left a runner going. And you make another 1,000, 2,000 Rand. So that way, each time you scale in, you're building your capital up and you're building your capital up. Now what has happened, it has now come back up to this point there and it is dropping down. So your edge is literally breaking this thing down, seeing that we are pulling back down to a lower position, and finding your entries can literally be something as simple as looking for wicks. Those wicks are showing you stuff, but the important thing is you need to be able to flip around your time frames. This is much less noisy than, let's say, a 1 hour. The 1 hour looks very noisy. And I mean, little tools that you can use are things like a little trend line. A trend line like that. If it breaks that trend line, we know this sell is confirmed. You can possibly do that. But now, how would you risk this thing? Will you have time to sit and look at the chart all day? You don't have to, because this thing moves so slowly on a 4-hour chart. So even when it came back to this point there yesterday afternoon at 3 and you entered, you would have had to wait now another 8 or 9 hours for this thing to start showing a bigger rejection. So jumping into trades is also not a good thing. But at the same time, more than likely your perfect entry would have been the tap into this block. We don't know what will happen. But you know your bigger trade, let's do this. And we're targeting these lows. Your bigger trade is a 1 to 9 at least. This is on a 4-hour chart. On the daily, if you have a bit of vision, you can see a point of interest there. And ultimately, we don't know if it will reach that thing, but the odds are there. So this setup, the moment it broke and retested that thing, from a technical standpoint, would have been something as simple as this. This would have been the bigger play trade right there, a 1 to 14. And the moment it goes into profit and it breaks, you can scale in on entry. So, I mean, here you had 1, 2, 3, 4 opportunities. And potentially once it breaks the low, 5 opportunities over the month to scale in. So, how long did it take me to analyze this chart? This video is now about 10 minutes long. 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day. But you need to have the proper understanding and the proper emotional state to understand these things, because you are risking money. But it's going to take you literally 1 or 2 of these trades to get that mindset going in the right direction. So I hope you can see what I'm talking about and the great potential that is there.